There is something seriously wrong with Arlecchino, and I mean besides her dodging all of my pulls. Between her being a descendant of the Crimson Moon dynasty who shouldn't even be alive, to her ability to create shadows that are strangely similar to the sin shades created by the god of time, Istaroth, something isn't quite adding up. Add her curse and her glitching to the mixture, and we have a mystery on our hands. One that we may already be able to unravel. Heads up, this video contains spoilers about everything Arlecchino, from her story quest to her voice lines and character stories. You have been warned. Arlecchino advises the traveler not to look too closely at her eyes, as she can't promise they will like what they see. We get a little bit of an explanation for this in a description of her boss drop, Denial and Judgment, which resembles her peculiar eyes. It states that, as fate casts an examining eye on humanity, so too will humans cast judgment upon fate. This is one of the main themes of her character, the Defiance of Fate. That's the very reason why she takes such meticulous care of her pyrovision. Though it is quite literally a godsend, to her it proves that she is able to defy fate and command her own future. Definitely a very Conrian sentiment, but I'll take her word for it. I think the knave has truly managed to oppose her fate to some extent, because Irminsul is probably not completely sure she even exists. Let's talk about her glitches. In one of Arlecchino's idols, all she does is glitch and shush you, as though she has just let you in on a secret. The glitching reminds me of the Sustainer's portal and her boxes. These same boxes can be seen floating above the wreckage during the Cataclysm. The glitch, the portal, the boxes. All of them are red. You know what else is red? The particles released by hilichurls and other monsters upon their death. When your characters die, the particles you release are blue, like the interior of Irminsul, which indicates that their souls are leyline bound. They will return to the tree, which is essentially Genshin's afterlife. However, it is also through Irminsul that fate is dictated. So, if you are bound to the magic tree, you can never be truly free from fate. But Celestia doesn't want every soul to reach the afterlife. 500 years ago, non-pure-blooded Conrians were turned into hilichurls, while the pure-blooded ones were given immortality. This prevented all of them from dying and returning to the ley lines, to Irminsul. That's why they release red particles, because even upon their death, their soul will not reach the afterlife. The Sustainer made her presence known during the Cataclysm, so it's possible she was the one who cursed the inhabitants of the Underground Kingdom, which may mean that this red glitchy power of hers has the power to sever one's connection to Irminsul. Could Arlecchino have managed to do something similar? Is her glitching proof that she truly defied fate by burning away her connection to Irminsul? Allow me to play devil's advocate for a second and say that playable Arlecchino does release blue particles when she dies. Then again, so does a Traveler, and they are a blind spot to Irminsul. Still, I did not base this whole theory on colors. We do have some more substantial evidence. Evidence that comes in the form of the God of Time and the God of Eternity. In a previous video, which I'll link up in the cards, I explored the idea that Istaroth represents stasis rather than the flow of time, hence why A, who wished for a static eternity, seemed to worship Istaroth, if the statue of the omnipresent god is an indication. Istaroth also created the sin shades of Enkanomiya, which freeze the memories and emotions of a person in time, ensuring that he will always exist in the world, just like Arlecchino's shadows. This led me to believe that Istaroth may be rebelling against Celestia, because Gnosticism tells us that the only reason why time flows in the material realm, which is Tevat in the context of Genshin, is because it is a flawed creation made by a fake god, aka the Primordial One. Time does not flow in the Pleroma, which is the realm of light that houses the true gods and is the rightful home of humanity. So I suggested that A may have been trying to get Inazuma closer to the Pleroma by denying the passage of time. Irminsul probably controls the passage of time to some extent, and Celestia controls Irminsul. Think about it, the ultimate manifestation of the passage of time is death, with Irminsul being the afterlife of Genshin. It also records the history and future of Tevat, and is thus likely used to reset the world after each loop of the Samsara. Since A wanted to break free of the clutches of time, she had to break free of Celestia. So she gave her noses to Yaemiko and willingly went along with the Fatuist plot, enacting the Vision Hunt decree. By stripping her people of visions, she would be severing their connection to Celestia. She was successful to some extent because Electrovisions did stop being awarded all over Teyvat, and we now know that they are given out through the Archons. So what if, along with severing her connection to Celestia, she managed to sever her connection to Irminsul as well? After all, Raiden also glitches. Her teaser is riddled with glitch effects, something that she has in common with Arlecchino, though it's not the only thing. In the plane of Euthymia, A also has what appears to be a crimson moon. Thank you for that nice catch, Luna. So it's very possible that there is some connection between the two. Irminsul's interior is surprisingly digital looking, as are Nahida's attacks. She is a tree's avatar after all. It's probably not incorrect to think of Irminsul as a control center of the dream or simulation that is Teyvat. If you were to partially sever your connection to the tree, wouldn't it be like momentarily losing your connection to the server of reality? Maybe it would cause you to glitch out. Turns out Arlecchino is just that one friend with terrible ping. Also, since we are talking about stasis, this is a good time to point out that if you pause your game while Arlecchino is glitching, the glitching effect won't stop, which may support the idea that she's outside of the flow of time or not quite within Irminsul's grasp. But there is yet another thing that suggests this, and that is Leo Branto Inamorato. When Arlecchino asked Pierre why she was always dreaming of a crimson moon and the truth behind her flames, he told her to read this book, which narrates the story of Perinheri. According to the jester, while some of the narrative is misleading, all the key details are accurate. According to the book, Perinheri was an outlander who drifted into Teyvat, but who did not possess the will of a descender. His very first memory was of being asked to crawl through a coal ash-filled chimney by the grown-ups. When he finally reached the end of this passage, those very same adults asked him if he was dead, and only let him out once he confirmed that, yes, he was dead. Yes, he had seen the crimson moon turn to reveal a titanic, horrified eye. This happened at the orphanage that Conrad had built to take in children from another world. This orphanage and the House of the Hearth are probably one and the same organization. Meanwhile, the Crimson Moon dynasty fell and the Eclipse lineage took its place. By then, Perinheri had become a great knight, alongside his best friend, Leobrand. Unfortunately, their peace was shattered by a new arrival at the orphanage, Angelica. She claimed to be a princess from a foreign nation that had been defeated by Morax, and was looking to marry the mightiest knight in the entire kingdom. Leobrand fell head over heels for her, but Perinheri saw through her facade, believing her a witch, and decided that he needed to kill Angelica to save his friend from his madness. However, when one night all three of them left the borders of Conria, Leobrand got turned into a hilly troll on account of being a descendant of those who had forsaken their god. Perinheri presumably killed his best friend that night. When the sun finally rose, he realized that Angelica was neither a witch nor a princess. In her own words, she was freedom, that which is broken free of fate. She told him that Leobrand had sought freedom in agony and failed. That same freedom was now Perinheri's to take. If you played through Arlecchino's story quest, these should all be sounding incredibly familiar. Leobrand parallels Clervy really well. She too spent her entire life fighting for freedom and never actually attaining it. The only taste of freedom she got was when she died by her best friend's blade. Leobrand's love for Angelica may also parallel Clervy's love for her mother, Crucibina. Despite everything, she still turned down Periware's plan of killing her mother due to the love that she held for her. Meanwhile, Perinheri would be Periware in the story. He was the leading figure amongst the ranks of knights, the strongest of them all, unless he was forced to compete with Leobrand. So, once his friend died, Perinheri became the uncontested strongest, just like Periware became the king of the house once she killed Clervy. And just like Angelica revealed herself as freedom at the end of it all, so too did Crucibina become Periware's freedom when she died. There are so many similarities that it led me to question if Leobrand Inamorato might be to Arlecchino what the cat fairy tale is to the Wanderer. Sure, Perinheri was an Outlander and she's of Conran descent, but last I checked, Scaramouche wasn't actually a cat. It could be part of her past that has been removed from Irminsul and hidden from it by being preserved in the form of a story. If this is the case, it supports the idea that she is, or was, invisible to Irminsul. But I don't think it is that simple. Again, Piero confirmed that the key details of this book are accurate, and the timeline just doesn't fit. This story took place thousands of years ago, and Perinheri grows up during the span of the story. Meanwhile, Periware was a little kid when she was taken in by Crucibina and she grew up, so she isn't even an aging. And then there are two things that the Jester said that gave me pause. According to Arlecchino's voice lines, Piero was surprised to learn that there are any descendants of the Crimson Moon bloodline left at all. And he was even more surprised that the House of the Hearth should end up in the hands of one of them yet again. And that's just wild to me because it means that Arlecchino shouldn't exist. Keep in mind that Piero is Conrian and he served as a royal mage under the Eclipse dynasty and later, presumably, the Albrecht Regency. We don't know how long the Eclipse dynastic line lasted for, but probably a while. It's also quite possible that they took over the Crimson Moon dynasty by force, because there is a tribe of Hilichurls called the Eclipse Tribe, which means that this new dynasty was probably not pure-blooded. If that was the case, they might have tried to eliminate the Crimson Moon bloodline completely. Whatever the case though, the fact is that no one had heard of any members of Arlecchino's bloodline for way over 500 years until Perware popped up in Chrysabina's orphanage. And that's weird. Yes, she was an orphan, but she still had biological parents. Her existence implies that her family managed to stay in the shadows for centuries. Well, maybe not. Arlecchino's last living relatives may have passed when her bloodline was dethroned, and she herself might be much older than she looks. After all, she's the cinder of two worlds' flames. The meaning of this title isn't clear. It could simply be referring to the fact that she's Conrian but was raised in Fontaine. After all, Conria was so far removed from the rest of Tivat that it might as well have been a completely different world. Or it might be deeper than that. It might refer to the world of the living and the world of the dead. She definitely has a foot in each of those two worlds. Arlecchino is plagued by the voices of those she has killed with her flames. Their shadows linger near her, often waking her from dreams with screams, wails, and hurled recriminations. Of course, these aren't actually the souls of those she killed, only they are after images. But I can't be the only one who thinks that, despite her being a spider, she has a lot of phoenix imagery going on. She conjures up a feathered wing from her blood and fire. As her curse progresses, her skin is left blackened as though burned, and she allows others to be reborn. So let's talk about Arlecchino's idea of an execution. Father is merciful but strict, and she does not go back on her word or make exceptions to the rules. All those who betray the House of the Hearth will be executed by her hand. But she does not strip her rebellious children of their lives, only their memories. The knave truly believes that to lose one's memories is to lose one's life. It is the death of the self. All that is left is a blank slate, which is, in itself, a rebirth, a chance at a whole new life. And the process of removing these memories is nothing short of fascinating. Arlecchino uses her own bottled-up flames. That means that her fire is not only capable of preserving memories by creating shadows, but also of destroying them. And that made me wonder if that also applies to her. There is something else that is weird about Perinheri. Remember, his first memory was of crawling through the chimney, but it's not like he was a baby that suddenly developed consciousness and the ability to make memories. He already understood the concept of death and was able to be snarky towards the adults. He was old enough to have prior memories, and yet the first thing he remembered was the Crimson Moon and the Giant Eye. Arlecchino often sees that same moon in her dreams, and she too had no memory of her past. She did not know where she was from or why she had her powers until she met Piero. You see what I'm getting at, right? I believe both Perinheri and Arlecchino had their memories stripped from them. When Perinheri said that, yes, he had died while crossing the chimney, that wasn't a lie. His previous self had died, and most likely so had Perverse, and she would have died by her own power. Arlecchino is dying. Her curse not only causes her a lot of agony, but it also corrupts her flesh, and there seems to be no cure for it. And she knows she is dying. Despite looking so young still, she is already trying to shape Lini into her successor, as to not leave the children without a home and a parental figure. According to her character story 4, Arlecchino believes that if her curse were to creep up her shoulder and snake from her shoulder to her heart, she would likely undergo some sort of change, with change being written in quotation marks. Usually anything that resembles a curse or a poison reaching your heart is a very, very bad sign, and it tends to end in death. But we just discussed how she may not quite be within her mental cycle, and so her soul might not return to the ley lines upon death. So what's the alternative? A phoenix-style rebirth. Signora could only manage the first half of the process, but Arlecchino might go beyond that. Every time the curse reaches her heart, her memories might be erased, resulting in her being reborn as a blank slate whose first memory is a crimson moon. But because her flesh is also affected by the curse, her physical body might also be reset to the form of a child. That could explain why, despite there being no traces of anyone else of her lineage in centuries, she popped up as a child at the orphanage. And remember when I said that I didn't think that Perinheri was simply her story being hidden from Irminsul? Yeah, I think Arlecchino might have been Perinheri. She may be stuck in a samsara of her own due to not being able to enter Irminsul. You know how Piero was surprised that the House of the Heart ended up in the hands of someone from the Crimson Moon bloodline again? If the house did start in Conria, it might even have been founded by someone of this bloodline, or it might have always been Arlecchino. Nicole claims that fate cannot be easily altered, and even a god may only have a slim chance of doing so. I mean, if you have played a New World quest, just look at Remus, he tried. So, despite not being bound to Irminsul, the knave is probably not completely free of fate. Who knows if hers ties her down to the House of the Hearth? But that's just a whole lot of speculation. I have to admit that there are stranger things in the lore, though. I love Arlecchino a whole lot, but she's so mysterious that it's giving me a headache. So this was my attempt at making things clearer. I might have failed spectacularly, I don't know, let me know. Anyway, what's your take on all of this? Is Arlecchino stuck in a perpetual cycle of reincarnation? Is she a glitch in a simulation? And more importantly, will she stop touching my pulse? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe and share the video. That's all for today, my name is Blue, and I'll see you again soon. Safe journey, travelers!